Looking back to 2023, it's safe to say that it was a wonderful year for gaming. But how is 2024 looking? Well, let's discuss our top 10 picks for single-player games set to release this year.
We are only ranking these based on our personal preferences and overall observation and research. Not all of these games have a release date, but they are more than likely to be released this year. Other games, such as Dragon Age Dreadwolf and Star Wars Eclipse, will not be included.
Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We would also love to hear what games you're looking forward to in 2024.
Okay, let's kick off the list. Fable shouldn't need much of an introduction. The new member of the franchise is described as a role-playing game first and foremost, which is great to hear on paper, but I have my doubts. This time, the developer taking over Fable is Playground Games, which is quite the shift from their usual work, given how they're most famous for their work on the Forza Horizon series. Not that this kind of change is unheard of. Other studios have made such leaps before. For example, just a few years ago, Sony's first-party studio, Guerrilla Games, went from developing an FPS franchise, Killzone, to a more action RPG-focused franchise, Horizon Zero Dawn. This shift in direction has paid off for Guerrilla, and their new IP has found great success. However, there is a reason we're putting this at number 10. The official trailer released half a year ago received massive backlash for a variety of reasons. From the switch of the art style and the generally misleading marketing tricks, to people not resonating with the humor portrayed in the trailer, things are looking quite a bit shaky for this one. But despite that, Fable will without a doubt be one of the bigger AAA game releases in 2024, if in fact it even does release in 2024.
Not all stories have happy endings.
Phantom Blade is developed by S-Game based in Beijing, China. S-Game is a fairly small studio that until now has only made mobile games and hasn't reached a market outside of China. While we don't have a release date for their new title just yet, we do know that the game will receive a 30-minute demo at some point in 2024, and there is a fairly decent chance it will be released in the second half of the year. Phantom Blade Zero is said to be a role-playing fighting game using the Unreal Engine 5. It will be released on the PlayStation 5 and possibly on PCs. Although this is up for debate due to Sony funding the gaming market in China with their China Hero project. They may ask for the game to become an exclusive or a timed exclusive at the very minimum. In Phantom Blade Zero, you're Saul, an elite assassin serving an elusive but powerful organization known simply as the Order. In the story, Saul is framed for the death of the Order's patriarch and is gravely injured in the manhunt that ensues. A mystic healer then manages to save him from death, but this makeshift cure only lasts for 66 days. We assume this means the player is given a time frame in which he needs to beat the main story. Based on what was shown, the gameplay looks very good and the art style is something to behold. The devs are calling it Kung Fu Punk, a mixture of steampunk and stylish Chinese visuals. The game will also be semi-open world, choosing to have a few smaller maps such as those you'd see in a game like Jedi Fallen Order, instead of one giant map, like in Elden Ring for example.
Rise of the Ronin is an upcoming action role-playing game developed by Team Ninja and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. The game is scheduled to release on the PlayStation 5 on March 22, 2024. At first glance, this game will likely remind people of Ghost of Tsushima, as indeed both games are set in Japan but during different time periods. Rise of the Ronin is set in 1863, during the time in which Western influence over Japan strengthened and the country fell into a state of turmoil and civil war. Amidst the chaos of war, disease, and political unrest, our protagonist, a nameless warrior, forges their own path, holding the very fate of Japan in their hands. This is said to be Team Ninja's biggest title yet. Soulsborne fans are specifically very interested in this open world game, likely due to the recent success of Elden Ring, so I really do believe this is one to look out for.
An upcoming action RPG developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox. Avowed will take place in the same universe as Pillars of Eternity, which severely helps the game's world building as they won't have to re-establish everything from the ground up. However, based on what we've seen from the game, it takes quite the inspiration from Bethesda's Elder Scrolls series. Which isn't a bad thing, as Fallout New Vegas, which many consider to be Obsidian's best game, did take Bethesda's formula of exploration, questing, etc. and just added on top of it. So it sounds great, but I have to note that the tone set in the first trailer looked a lot more appealing to me than the more recent trailer we got. I like the darker atmosphere over the more colorful and saturated gameplay we saw, which feels a bit cartoony at times. But despite that, I do think this will be a game worth playing with good writing and in-depth RPG mechanics. Will it be the next big thing? Probably not, but it doesn't have to be either. Obsidian Entertainment is a studio I very much respect and love ever since they released Fallout New Vegas. And yes, while their current team looks quite a bit different, the studio's direction and overall focus hasn't really changed, and that is good enough for me to have faith in them. Although I should note that the recent in-depth look we got was really underwhelming in a way. We didn't really learn anything new, the gameplay with the wand and pistols looks solid, and the melee combat looks serviceable, but that's about it. I wanted to see more examples of choice and consequences. Anyway, time will tell how things will turn out for this one.
Developed by Ninja Theory and published by Xbox Game Studios, this is the sequel to the highly acclaimed Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. The developers behind the game are shaping up to be the Naughty Dog studio for Xbox, producing real high quality cinematic games that Microsoft's platform has been lacking. Now, I know what some of you might say, not all games need to be cinematic, and to that I say yes, but if your direct competitor develops such games and they are so successful, it makes sense for you to follow suit and produce your own. Love them or hate them, there is a big market for these games, and Ninja Theory have proven that they are more than capable of providing for it. Looking past this into the actual game, in Hellblade 2, we'll once more play as Senua, the protagonist from the first title who is fighting to stop the Viking invasion in Iceland. The original Hellblade shined with its portrayal of mental illness, mainly schizophrenia and psychosis. Her condition, although something that can be treated and even cured today, is seen as a curse in the late 8th century when the game takes place. Instead of trying to fight this condition, Senua embraces it, to the point where Norse and Celtic mythology become real in her mind. As expected, the combat looks fluid and cinematic. The music and sound design showcased so far are amazing, and overall this looks like an extremely immersive and emotional experience. I hope it lives up to the hype.
Yes, yet another upcoming action role-playing game. This time drawing heavy inspiration from Chinese mythology. More specifically, the novel Journey to the West, with gameplay mechanics inspired by From Software titles. So yeah, a Souls-like game. There seem to be quite a few of these lately, huh? But why though? Although usually Chinese games tend to go unnoticed in the Western market, this one shines through and looks appealing to many gamers due to its interesting lore, setting and frankly beautiful graphics. The story is about what looks like Wukong, also known as the Monkey King, who makes a journey across the western regions to obtain sacred texts. We don't know how faithful Black Myth Wukong will be to the original text, but in brief, the novel is about the development and redemption of a young god. It is a classical hero's journey, the most basic and famous comparison being the original Star Wars. It touches on themes such as self-control, patience, and personal growth. If these themes are actually touched on in the game, and we get an emotional story on top of what already looks like a fantastic combat system, it will be a masterpiece. The only reason we put this at number 5 is due to the fact that the developer Game Science is an unknown quantity. This is their first AAA release, and although it looks phenomenal, it would be wiser to once again temper our expectations. Just last year we had Atomic Heart, which also looked great and was also developed by an unfamiliar studio, Monkfish, and that game, although not great, not terrible, certainly did not live up to the set expectations some people had for it. Do we think the same will happen with Black Myth? Not necessarily, but it's always good to take things with a grain of salt.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, developed by Machine Games and running on the id Tech engine, is looking like a very promising title. The Great Circle is going to be an action-adventure game, which will primarily be played in first-person perspective, with third-person elements being employed for environmental traversal and cutscenes. This alone already sets it apart from titles such as Uncharted and the Tomb Raider series. I think this approach will work in the game's favor. The Wolfenstein series has proven that Machine Games are masters of first-person action and storytelling. And, speaking of story, The Great Circle will feature an original narrative that draws heavy inspiration from the film series. The story is set in 1937, which places it in between the events of the first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the third film, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We don't know too many details about the story, but what we do know is that in the story, Indiana notices how sites of spiritual significance built throughout history form a perfectly aligned circle around the globe. Aside from Rome, other locations include the Sukhothai temples in Thailand, the Egyptian pyramids, and the snowy Himalayas. This is quite the interesting premise that does somewhat align with reality. There are a number of theories revolving around this. Some people speculate that Atlantis can be found somewhere around this circle as well. So perhaps this is what we'll be looking for in this game as well. Either way, the concept is quite interesting and I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Star Wars Outlaws is a first in many things. It is the first Star Wars game to come out after EA's exclusivity deal with Disney has passed. This is the first open world Star Wars game since the days of Knights of the Old Republic, and the only Star Wars game to actually focus on the criminal underworld instead of the storylines we usually get. Which is something I think can bring a fresh new perspective to the genre, and I am looking forward to trying it out. The game is developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft. It is described as an action-adventure game, and interestingly enough it takes place during what most people find to be the best Star Wars period. That being the Galactic Empire/Rebellion timeframe, positioned between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So far the game looks promising and sounds even better on paper. However, due to the title being published by Ubisoft, fans are already doubtful of it. I myself don't have that much faith in Ubisoft, considering that games like The Division and Watch Dogs also look great on their gameplay preview. Despite that, Massive should be judged differently. Their most recent title, Avatar, actually received good reviews and people enjoyed it. So I do think they deserve the benefit of the doubt here. They are once again using the Snowdrop engine, and it has proven to be more than capable of handling such ambitious open world projects. I'm interested if they will take the bold step to only stick to original characters, or if any cameos will be made such as Han Solo based on the trailer they released. But either way, this is one to keep an eye out for.
Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl is an upcoming first-person shooter/survival horror game, developed and published by the Ukrainian game studio GSC Game World. It is the fourth game released in the Stalker universe. The original game has an incredibly loyal fanbase and for good reason. It is considered to be one of the best survival games ever made. People that played it claim that the AI of the game is very smart and that Stalker 2 is a fairly challenging experience, although some people did complain about the optimization. Performance could be the biggest overall issue this game has. The delays and downgrades hint that this is something that they are struggling with, and who can really blame them? The war in Ukraine has made things extremely difficult for the devs as they have literally had to move their entire studio to another country mid-development. Now, of course, these are just our observations, and we can't really be certain how things will end up on launch day. All I can say is, I hope for the best possible launch for this game. The initial reception for any game is very important. We can take Star Wars Jedi Survivor as a recent example of this. Although the game is better than its predecessor in almost every way, at least in my opinion, the initial reception of the general public was much worse due to its poor optimization. I hope Stalker 2 doesn't suffer the same fate. The last thing I want to cover about this game is related to the latest trailer we received. The trailer in question makes the game look quite linear. Now, I don't mind linear games, but if they're going for the PlayStation format and go for a more cinematic experience here, I think it would be a mistake. We already have a more linear post-apocalyptic game in Metro, and as great as Metro is, Stalker is a different animal that should stick to its own legacy. What made the previous Stalker game so great was the atmosphere and the freedom to choose what you're going to do next. Not story choices, just in-game choices of whether you go exploring or manage and restocking your gear, waiting on a storm to pass, etc. If they keep this, we could be looking at a Game of the Year contender here. How about you? Are you excited for this game and do you think it will live up to the original? Let us know in the comments down below.
Space Marine 2 is an upcoming third-person shooter with hack-and-slash elements developed by Saber Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment. Set in the Warhammer 40k universe, this is one that many people are looking forward to, and for good reason. This game looks amazing. From what we know so far, you play as Lieutenant Titus, a Space Marine who has been demoted since the events of the first game. We will be facing off against the countless forces of the Leviathan High Fleet, who go from world to world consuming every trace of biological matter in their way. The whole premise of the game is awesome. The Leviathan fleet is a very interesting and tough antagonist, and from what we've seen so far, the game does the fleet justice. You can see thousands of foes on the screen at the same time, and the game still runs as smooth as butter, which by itself is an amazing feat. Space Marine 2 will feature a single player campaign that can also be played in co-op with 2 of your friends. One of the main goals of the title is to make us feel like the legendary Space Marines from the 40k universe. And from what we've seen so far, it achieves this goal flawlessly. So guys, this is probably the game I have the most faith in based on what's shown so far. Now, does that mean get hyped and pre-order? No, it would be best to wait for the reviews to be sure. But so far, it's looking very, very promising, and we can't wait to play it on September 9th this year.
Let's discuss our top 10 picks for single player games that are also in the top 10 list. Well, let's discuss our top 10 picks for top.
Take your damn sock off!
Take your sock off! Let's discuss our top 10 picks for top 10. Well, feed! I am trying to record!
You're saying it like really fast. Slow down a bit.
No, it's supposed to be fast.
No.
No, it is. No, it is.
Did you write this shit?
Yeah.
Please no. We are only...
Yeah, not so tough now, are you?
And overall... Please note. We are only ranking these based on our personal preferences and overall observations and research. But they are... Other games which aren't likely to be released... Other games which aren't likely to be released this year, such as Dragon Age Dragon... such as... Other games which aren't likely to be released this year, such as Dragon Age Dreadwolf and Star Wars Eclipse, will not be included. Other games which aren't likely to be released this year's...
Yes.
Huh?
We have it.
We have it?
We had it 10 minutes ago, but we kept
Shut
recording.
the fuck up.
Don't forget to leave a
Don't forget to get a life.
Mother! Want to be included in the video?
No, I don't want to be caught on camera with you. I think we're good.